Hello guys and welcome to this video. In this YouTube video I will actually be showing you guys how to calculate beta using Excel in a very simple way. But before I'm going to jump into Excel, I'm going to briefly talk about what beta actually is. Beta is basically a measure of risk or volatility in a security's return in comparison to the whole market or a specific index. So in other words, it could be that you're trying to measure the risk and returns of Apple, for example, and you're trying to measure this risk compared to the returns of the whole S&P 500 index. If you do that and you calculate the beta for Apple compared to the S&P 500 index, you'll get a beta value. Now this beta value might be 1, which actually means that the returns of investing into Apple is equal to the returns of investing into the S&P 500 index, which also means that the risk of these two investments is the same. Now, if you do get a beta that is below 1, then it basically means that the risk of the volatility in the returns of Apple is less than it is in the returns of the S&P 500 index, which actually means that the risk of the volatility is less in Apple than it is in the S&P 500 index. And now in the last scenario we have where the beta is above 1. This is where it basically means that the risk or the volatility is actually higher in Apple than it is in the S&P 500 index. And thus is Apple a more risky investment than the S&P 500 index, at least measured based on returns. And now with that being said, let's jump into Excel and show you guys how to actually calculate the beta. So in order to calculate the beta, the first thing that we want to do is go over to this website called yahoofinance.com. Then we're going to type in the company that we want to calculate the beta for, which in this example here is going to be Apple. So we type in Apple here and we click on this one. Then it is going to take us to this page here where we can see all sorts of information about the company, such as the PE ratio, the market cap, and all of these different things here. However, in order to calculate the beta, we go to this part here called historical data. Once you get in here, you see all of this information down here, and you see we can choose between the time period and the historical prices and the frequency of the data. And we do want to change some of this information. The first thing we want to change is the time period. When you're calculating the beta, you want to have a sufficient enough large data set in order to get a correct estimate of the beta. So we're going to choose a 5-year time period here. And then the next thing that we're going to change is going to be the frequency. We don't want to have a daily frequency because we are going to get too much data out of this. And we're not interested in the data based on the day-to-day changes. We want to estimate the beta based on the changes in the prices over time, and therefore the best way to do that is by choosing the weekly. Then we're going to hit apply, and then we're going to download this. Once you have opened the data set, it's going to look like this in Excel. The next thing that you want to do is go over to Yahoo Finance again, and then you're going to type in S&P 500. You're going to go to this one. You're going to click on historical data, set the time period to 5 years, and do the exact same thing again. Now, once you have both data sets in the same Excel sheet, it's going to look like this. Now, on the left side here, we do have Apple, and on the right side, we do have the S&P 500 index. The next thing that we want to do is sort of like sort this data. There is way too much data in here for us to calculate the beta, and we don't need all of this. In order to make it look more clean, I'm going to cut some of the data out of this Excel sheet here. So now the data set looks like this. Now we have all the information that we need in order to calculate the beta. We only have the date and we have the adjusted closing price for both Apple and the S&P 500 index. So the next thing that we do want to do is calculate the returns. What we have here is the actual prices of the stock, and that's not really interesting. We want to see how the value changes from this point to this point. And how we do that is by making an equal sign here, take this one, divide it by this one minus 1. And then we're going to do like this, and then you're going to drag it all the way down. So like this. You do not want to take the last point here because, well, let's try to do it. it will say -1, which is 100%. And the reason is that it's trying to look at a cell where there's not any values in. So it's always going to return with a value of -1, which is not true. So I'm just going to make some headlines here in order so you guys know what it is I'm doing. Apple returns S&P 500. So the next thing I want to do is calculate the beta. You do that by making an equal sign, type slope, make a parenthesis, and then it basically says known y's and known x's. When you're calculating the beta, the known y's is always going to be the company that you're looking at. So here it's going to be Apple. So you're going to click here, drag it all the way down, and then you're going to go to the top. You're going to type a comma, and then you're going to click on the known x's, which is of course going to be the S&P 500 index. So you're going to click on this one, drag it all the way down, and make the ending parentheses. And then you're simply just going to hit enter. So this actually means that we do get a beta value for Apple of 1.05, which essentially means that Apple is actually more risky in respect to returns than the S&P 500 index is. So that's all in this video. I want to say thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you actually learned something from this video.